We like talking about everything growth related. At Badass Mavericks, we tackle fears and doubts head on. Overcome obstacles and thrive in all areas of your life. Here's your host, Brian Dewald.
So welcome to Badass Mavericks. Today I am joined by Tanna Donalson. She is an entrepreneur, a model, an actress, a PAC, and the owner of Redbud Med Spa. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about all kinds of exciting things. We're going to talk about some paradigm shifts in medical, and we're going to talk about everything health history and, working out, fitness routine, nutritions, all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm really excited to jump in. So we are at BAM. It's known as Badass Mavericks. Maverick is the name of my little boutique mortgage company. And I thought we would carry it right into the podcast. So a Maverick is someone who is unconventional and independent and doesn't think or behave as others. So Tanna, if I mention those words to you, I figured like you would be a perfect candidate as soon as you and I started connecting on this. So what are your thoughts? Are you conventional, or are you outside the box a little bit?
Not just a little bit. I feel
Not
like
just a little bit.
I'm like the black sheep rebel in medicine.
Ooh, I like it.
Rules.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So like in your own words, like what does that look like? What do you think when I say unconventional or doesn't think or behave as others do? And I knew you were going to answer that way. That's why I was so excited to have you on here.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. When I was 22, thinking about going into medical school of some sort, I didn't know I was this rebellious until I started to learn the system and see. I mean, I just remember so many times sitting in grad school, listening to people talk and thinking, but I don't know. I was probably like a hell to raise, the one that asked why and pushed back on everything. It just doesn't make sense to me why everything is so reactive, but this was the career that I chose. And so I went into emergency medicine and trauma and reacted to everything that came in the door, but was never taught how to get in front of anything. So I started asking questions and being a pain in the ass and pushing back and breaking the rules and getting in trouble. And so that's why I am in private practice, because I'm unemployable.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, and what's scary is like that's the unconventional way of thinking, right? Like you bringing these things up is a pain in the ass of sorts, right? Like it's terrible, but that's the case. But here we are. So we'll jump into lots of different stuff around that. I love hearing about growth. Talk to me about your idea of growth, because I know you're an entrepreneur. You've got all kinds of kind of fun things going on. What's that mean to you if I say the word growth?
On the topic of growth, I think what I actually posted something like this on my Instagram story the other day. So these are not my words. I'm just going to totally screw it up. Somebody else did this. But there's a little bit of a dopamine surge that you get from reading all the books and listening to all the podcasts and getting really involved in all the self-help stuff. But the real money is in the action. And so for whatever reason, maybe it's just my extra energy, maybe I'm motivated differently than other people, but these things that I've learned, not all of them, I have plenty of growth that, I need to get into at some point, but I have put it into action, like I've learned something and actually done something with it. And my life and business and everything reflects that. So growth to me, I have a desire to grow. I have a desire to learn all the things, but I also have a desire to implement that stuff into life and relationships.
That's huge, right? Like, because a lot of people, can be the smartest people in the room, but just don't take the action, right? And maybe if there's some sort of psychological advantage to folks like you that can do that, but like the action is where all of the fun is. And even if you fail, right? Like I have this whole premise that I share with my team. I've got 5 employees and we chat every Monday about wins, and I don't call them losses. We call them lessons. W's and L's are wins and lessons in my book. And I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a fun.
Well, how else are you supposed to learn if you don't screw stuff up and you don't fail a little bit? I love it when my kids screw up and when they fail.
Agree.
Not that everything has to be a teaching moment, but how else are you supposed to learn?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a textbook, right? It doesn't work well for me. Like I don't retain any of that stuff, right? But if I screw it up, I learn, and I love that. But go back a little bit to medicine and basically give us an outline or like a high level view of what you do.
I feel like I do a lot of things. So here
Okay.
we go.
I figured. I
My
think you do a lot of
background,
things too. Go ahead, sorry.
I do a lot of things. I like to do a lot of things. I like to have I cast a wide net, and because I can do a lot of things. I can help in a lot of different ways. So at the same time, I don't want to do everything. I can't be good at everything. That's
Sure.
for sure. My
Okay.
background is in emergency and trauma. I did that for 14 years. I learned by fire. I was thrown to the wolves. I did some really crazy stuff, and I have lots of stories to tell. But
Okay.
that is my time in Western medicine. And during that time, I learned what I'm passionate about, which is longevity, health, wellness, getting in front of disease, and just listening. Believe it or not, that's a skill
Weird.
that isn't taught in medicine. I know it's super good, but I got good at listening and good at empathy and good at stepping into people's shoes and really caring actually about what they're going through.
Okay.
And so when I bailed on corporate medicine, which I hate to say that, that makes me really sad because I wish I could have stayed in the system and still practiced in a way that felt ethical and good to me, but I couldn't. And
I
so
get it.
I left, and now I'm in private practice. I have a medical spa where I do mostly aesthetics, but I also am doing some concierge functional medicine, hormone replacement for men and women, weight loss, peptide therapy, which is a whole new world, a fun
We're
one.
going to talk about that. Yep.
Yeah, and then just some functional medicine like nutritional evaluations, genetic testing, so on and so forth. There's a lot that we can do too. And it's all centered around health, wellness, longevity, biohacking, getting in front of disease, finding things before they become problems, and not just being a reactive practitioner waiting for the ball to drop and then trying to fix it.
Gosh, I love that. And that's really how you and I connected, right? We've got a mutual friend, and we're both clients of another gentleman who's been on here as well. He's been on our show. So he introduced us, and he knows my background. So, and I'm super transparent about all of it. And I don't really know the difference in a lot of it. So I came to you and just said, and I'm with you, right? Like I got into biohacking and these new ideas and stuff over the last year. I've really done quite a transformation. I was 260 some pounds a year ago. A1C was through the roof. I don't even know what that means. So I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit. But I never had gone to a doctor and heard the words, if you do these things, it will improve your quality of life, right? And there wasn't even a why behind it. It was, you take this pill, take that pill. That's not working. We should add another pill. And that's not working. We should just add to the dose. Like, I'm just like, finally, I threw my hands up in the air. And I'm like, this isn't even doing it. Like, how am I supposed to get better? Number one. And how am I messed up in the first place? Really? Like, this just doesn't make any sense. So like, yeah, when I came to you, a few months back, I was just like, gosh, here's my struggle, right? I can't seem to figure out, and I still don't really know what it means. So I want to ask you about this because I think it's a relatively common theme that a lot of people deal with, but my glucose was whacked out and I really can't do anything. I don't know how to get it any better. I told you my story, right? I've been very, very active the last year. I've been eating, all organic food. I order almost everything in, grass-fed, grass-finished, like the best of the best, no alcohol, like all of these things. And my glucose is still messed up. And I'm just like, why am I still feeling a little off? And that's where you came in with the peptides and all that. So let's start with some of the ideas behind high A1C and glucose and what does insulin do and things like that. Can you give us, like, if I'm a fifth grader, can you kind of help? Because at this time I retain things, right? I love talking to Adam Way because he just puts things in such perfect layman terms for me that I don't have to be like at his level or at your level to understand some of this stuff. So
He's very good at that. And he's very good at
great.
color coding. I wish I had like a color coded chart
Right?
here.
Yeah, we should get him on here just to like help us with some visuals or whatever the case
Yeah,
is.
he
So,
would be great at that. So, really simply put, when you're born and you're young, you have this organ, the pancreas, and its job is to secrete or like spit out insulin every time you eat anything that has glucose in it, which essentially is kind of everything. And so glucose hits the system, your pancreas recognizes that, it sends insulin out there to push the glucose inside of your cells so that you can burn it for fuel. If you remember back to being 20 when you could like eat a whole pizza or whatever, and you're hungry an hour later and it's not on your hips an hour later, it's just gone and you can eat more. Those days are gone for you and I. But back in the day, that's because your pancreas was working it was optimized. It was working really well. It wasn't sluggish. It wasn't tired. Over time, you get some degree of insulin resistance. And to be completely frank with you, this is anecdotal friend hat on, not medical, and I don't have the actual data to tell you. But I'm telling you, almost every patient that I test has some degree of insulin resistance, meaning their pancreas is not putting out as much insulin as it once did. And not only that, the insulin that it is putting out there's some resistance built up in the body. So now instead of the glucose going inside of the cell and being able to be used for fuel, it's getting stored as fat. Yeah. And so now you have also a higher level of circulating glucose. Your blood sugar is higher longer. In the ER, I can't tell you how many times people would walk in through the door and they have a blood sugar of 300 something and they feel fine. And it's because they've been living for a decade or longer with this elevated blood sugar and they didn't even know that they were diabetic. Or they come in because they have numbness in their feet or they're going blind or something like that. And it's literally because of diabetes. It was undiagnosed for a long, long time. Yeah, it's crazy.
Scary. So like what is
sorry, to answer your A1C question. An A1C is it's like a 90-day average of what your blood sugar has been doing. So instead of getting a static reading of a blood glucose, which is just right now, which is very affected by what you just did, you're getting a 90-day average in the form of percentage. And so that's how we test for diabetes.
Okay, cool. That's super helpful. And for like, again, because I don't know these kind of things, so I'm just generally curious. What does diabetes do? What are the negative? Everybody knows it's bad for you, but like, what is the potential? Is it cause other items? Go down that path a little bit.
Yeah, gosh. It doesn't do anything good. It does everything bad and it affects every organ in your body. But the low-hanging fruit here, it causes a hyperosmolar state of your blood. So your blood's thicker. There's more sugar in your blood. Your blood's thicker. So you're going to have all kinds of risks involved and downstream effects from that hyperosmolar state. So one thing would be neuropathy. So nerve damage, typically starting in your fingers and toes. So we will test the sensation on the bottom of people's feet because you're not always aware if you don't have great sensation on the bottom of your feet. So we test for that. The next thing would be nephropathy. So kidney disease. Things get clogged up and kidneys start functioning worse over time because of the elevated glucose over time. And I mean, the list just goes on. Diabetic retinopathy. So the retina is damaged. Again, blood flow is compromised to the retina. So you have decreased sensation, decreased eyesight, kidney damage. You have a higher degree of cardiovascular events, earlier death. The list goes on.
Yeah, gosh, super scary. Like I've never been told. I've been told I'm type 2 diabetic and never all of those things, nor how to improve it, right? Other than take this pill. Oh, this isn't working. Let's add to it. That still isn't working. Let's double the dose. And then I started going down a rabbit hole of what are these pills? And I'm like, am I better off just not taking anything? Like it's just, that's why I went as far as I could naturally, right? With food and exercise and things like that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But none of that was ever brought up. And I think that's why I enjoy you so much personally, right? It is because your outlook on things is so much like what I align with. I'm a big fan of, I told you like biohacking. And so I've been following and I've gone down this rabbit hole over the last year for some of these guys. And I'm fascinated by Dana White's story. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
He's the UFC president. And he got teamed up with a guy out of Miami named Gary Brecka. And just to hear some of the stuff that he's done just with a lot of the things that you and I have been working on is just insanely fascinating to me. What about, do you have any myths that you think you can help me debunk?
The biggest thing that comes to mind really, like, I guess I'm thinking bigger than just the things that you and I have talked about. But
sure.
I'll give you an example. It'll be really easy here. When I had my son, I was billed twice for his circumcision. In fact, I just got a bill in the mail for lots of thousands of dollars, and I didn't get an itemized statement. I know better, so I asked for an itemized statement, and circumcision was on there twice. And then I had to have an argument with the lady who's non-medical on the phone about how my son was only born with one penis, and it's not possible to need 2 circumcisions, right? So the point of this, the myth that I'm debunking, is that we have the power to push back. We have autonomy. We have our own agency. We have the ability to say no or to advocate for ourselves. But I feel like there's something, we're coming out of it, thank God. But I feel like for a really long time, we just go to the doctor and we do what they say. Look at our parents' generation. They have 15 doctors and they just like follow whatever those doctors tell them to do. They're not asking questions. They're not pushing back.
Right.
So like being an advocate for yourself, at least knowing what you don't know, start asking questions, look stuff up, read.
Yeah. Well, and that's how you and I connected, right? Like I was just going down looking for new answers and not necessarily liking the information I was given or not liking the amount of information I was given, which is just crazy.
Well, so the
Go
myth is that we know better. The myth is that
okay.
we know how to take care of you better than you know how to take care of you. And so come into the system, we will boss you around and we'll take great care of you. The truth is the system's really broken and the system is not going to take great care of you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I saw a meme the other day and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something along the lines of imagine if doctors got paid to heal people or keep them healthy, not just give them medicine. Right. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like totally my life right now. It's just
they'd have to go back to school.
Right. I know. Yeah. And the problem is, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, but my perception of all of this is that they're learning from the person that they learned from, that they learned from, that they like, it's just like a broken record, right? Like it's not, they don't even know any differently. They're just like, this is what I was told at my Harvard, whatever crap. And I don't know, we're going down this crazy rabbit hole, but anyway.
No, 100%. If you look at how medical students are taught today, it hasn't changed.
Right.
We might gain a list of 20 new drugs that have been pushed out, just another drug to cause another problem that needs another drug, but we're not changing the way that the paradigm, we're not changing the direction, we're not changing the way we take care of people at all.
Going back to the crazy story about your son. How old is your son?
He's 13.
Oh goodness. And this is still weird. I'm shocked that he's 13 and you're still having to deal with that stuff. Like it's just, I'm in the mortgage business. I've probably pulled somewhere around, I guess, somewhere between 25 and 30,000 credit reports in my career. I've been doing this a long time, maybe even more. And I think this may have just changed as far as billing on credit reports, but you would be maybe you wouldn't be, but the general public would be pretty shocked at how many collections and erroneous, mainly, things that I see on credit reports that are all medical related, right? And it's just like, I think it's kind of aligning with what you mentioned about your story with your son and his single penis, that he just like, oh, I thought the insurance was covering this. Oh, I thought I paid this. And I'm like, chances are you did. They're just like, I don't know. Maybe that's a whole nother conspiracy theory we should talk about, but are they like triple, quadruple billing just to be like, let's see what we can sweep under the rug kind of a thing? I don't know.
Totally. Well, and stuff isn't disclosed. We don't know. That's why this bill was for, I don't know, a little shy of 20 grand or something. I had terrible insurance at the time. And a lot of people, maybe most, would have just paid or set themselves up on a payment plan. And I'm like, can you just tell me what I'm paying for?
Right.
Can you just show it to me? And then it was like Tylenol that I never got, office visits. Like it said that the pediatrician came into the room every day, but he didn't. 2 circumcisions, all these things. There's so much corruption. You just have to start asking questions.
So like in a general nutshell, how do you, what does your process look like? Like, how do you help people?
It depends on what we're talking about. But if we're talking about regenerative health, longevity, biohacking type stuff, what I've been doing is just scheduling calls, either video or on the phone, and getting a really detailed, spending an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on how complicated things are. But taking a really deep dive into and taking my time with these people and taking a deep dive into their history, their family history. A lot of these people are healthy. So their desires, what it is they're trying to achieve, what it is that bothers them. I mean, it can be as small, for me, I'll give you an example, as I'm getting this close to maybe needing readers. Things up close are getting a little bit blurry and I'm super angry about it.
Guilty.
Yep. I am going to try cerebrolysine, which is a peptide. So before
Maybe
I
I should
go
try
get my
that.
readers, yeah, you should, and get out of those glasses. We'll see if our eyesight gets better. But so, getting down into the nitty gritty granular detail of somebody's life, what bothers them, what gets in their way of their days, all of these things, and really see there might be some solutions for that. Or it might be telling of something underlying, like maybe we need to do some intense lab work or whatever. So I spend a lot of time with these people and then create a custom plan for what it is I think that would be good for them. And then it's a collaborative thing. They can say no to whatever they want to, but I'm going to give all the information and then they decide.
Okay. Love that. Help me with this piece. And I'm sure this comes up sometimes, but why would somebody come to see you instead of their old school doctor? I know my answer for that, but I'm curious if is that a general question that comes up quite a bit?
No, I think people, well, I feel really lucky, blessed to be practicing now because I do feel like there's a general wave of just this awakening of people realizing how broken the system is. How, like I said, it's not really there to protect. It's not going to protect you. You're going to protect you if anyone is. And so I wish I could take insurance. I wish everything I did was covered by insurance. It's not. But at the end of the day, people are paying an insane amount monthly to have their insurance. In my mind, it's there to cover catastrophic events. Otherwise, you really need to be in the hands of somebody who can do exactly what I just said. Sit down with you for an hour and a half, really listen, not just react to your sinus problem or your toe pain, but like really ask about how it is that you envision your life to be when it's most optimized, and then figure out what it is I can do to help you get there. So I don't feel like it's a tough sell. I feel like more and more people are like, yeah, I want someone to sit down with me and really listen and help me figure out a plan.
Well, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is my opinion, is that there's no ulterior motive, right? Like it's a win-win for both sides. And, that's what I really love about being one of your patients, I guess is the right.
Yeah, thank you. If I could do this inside of the system, I would. If I could figure out a way to take insurance, see more people, offer this stuff to everyone, I would. I can't.
Sure.
It's
Right.
not built for us.
Well, and that's just part of the system, right? If you don't fit inside of our box, then we're not going to make it easy for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this might be a little bit of a good segue into, you mentioned a lot of people have kind of woken up to some of this stuff. What are your thoughts about RFK Jr. coming in? You think that's going to be hopefully a good thing, good sign for things to come?
Aside from anyone's political alignment or beliefs, him being nominated and passing through to the full Senate, to me, is a demonstrative thing. I mean, it was a tight, narrow vote. It was 13-14. It wasn't
Okay. Wasn't a landslide.
Yeah, not at all. And really, it's all about vaccines, and we can get into that, but whatever. Anyway, the point is, if somebody cares enough about if there is like an altruistic side of this man's heart and he really does want to make the food and the health industry better, then it's about freaking time. I don't really care who it is, So already he's making leaps and bounds, and he's calling stuff out, and he's making people, they're held accountable for some of the things that they're doing when it comes to vaccines and pesticides and testing and whatnot. So I'm all for it. It doesn't matter if I like him. I think we need some serious change, and I think that he will stir some things up.
No, I agree. I don't know if I like him or don't like him. Like, I can't watch the television and get any sort of truth out of the matter in terms of, there's just so many sides, and I didn't want to make it this at all political. I was just curious. I mean, I think like having a fresh bit of ideas in there, and if there's really going to be a push to make things better, I've seen the food pyramids and all the things, and I think it's a bunch of crap.
Gosh.
So if he can get in there and mix some of that stuff up and I say more power to him.
Sometimes he's really scrutinized for supporting things that mainstream medicine rejects. Peptides, psilocybin, the list goes on, or like research on vaccines or, whatever. So when there's scrutiny like that, to me, it's not a red flag. It is something that tells me to pay attention because we might be onto something.
Right.
The people that there's corruption in there, they don't like this.
Right.
We're going to take money out of their pockets.
Well, yeah. And especially as much as they make, right? Like they've got a lot of power to be able to do some of that stuff. So,
Yeah. It's super sad. Super sad.
Oh, I totally agree. So where would be like, if I were to come to you and just say, listen, and you kind of answered this already, but I want to maybe go a little deeper with it. If somebody comes to you and said, here's my problem and here's my challenge and here's what I want to do, whether it's health or nutrition or anything like that, what's kind of the protocol? And I know it can be very overwhelming, at least for me, and kind of hard and sometimes like a little bit of a mind fuck, to be honest with you. Like when I first contacted you, I was like, I'm on top of the world. There's no way I'm going to be any kind of unhealthy whatsoever. And then I had another test done and I was like super deflated. But like, I know I went in a bunch of different directions there, but like, where's a good place for people to start, I guess is my question.
In the functional medicine world, as I've learned that and realized how people have their structure set up, I'm a little disappointed on that side too, because I contacted a physician who charges $2,500 for you to come sit with her for an hour to go into, an in-depth history. I'm never going to be that person because I actually do care and I want people to have access to this. So truly, for the cost of an office visit, which is a fraction of that, to sit down for an hour, hour and a half and really take a deep dive, the path will pave itself. You don't really have to know, like, I want this and this and this, and these are the things I want to target, because those things are going to get exposed and come up as we talk about your family history or things that you want to avoid or ways that you want to optimize your life. So you don't even have to know. If all you know that you want to live a long time and you want to prevent disease, I'm good with that. We can start there.
Okay, perfect. No, that's a wonderful answer. And that's basically how you and I got started, right? It was just like, here's a couple of the challenges, and you're like, cool, we gotta, let's do this, and this, and all of a sudden here we are, we're rolling. So what's a common challenge or issue that you see with folks? Is there one or two things that just seem to be the most common that you run into day to day?
Like health problem wise?
Yeah.
Or just
Health, nutrition, any of that kind of stuff? Yeah, challenges or whatever.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's difficult to overcome, and we've already touched on it, but as there is this wave, this awakening where people see, oh, the system's not protecting me. Oh, my doctor actually has no idea what I'm talking about or whatever. They still have a difficult time. Like if I talk to my parents, and if they see this, I love you guys, but their whole life, they've been doing it a certain way. They trust their doctors. They go to the doctor. They're sick. They wait till they're sick. They go to the doctor. They do what the doctor says. But instead of proactively thinking about what it is they want to avoid. It's like risk management. That's what I feel like I'm practicing risk management medicine, where I'm like, this could happen to you. You're set up for this because of family history or because of personal choices or whatever. So let's stop these things, start these things, and do this thing so that thing never happens. So you don't die too young,
You mentioned, and I was super curious to ask you about this in general, and you helped me with it before when we had our consult, our one-on-one. So, but explain, because I think it's still relatively new, and you touched on this and even mentioned this, but explain to me, what's a peptide? Let's get into the peptide chat.
Fun. It's like my favorite topic lately.
Love it. Yeah.
There are so many peptides. And if you hang around long enough, this will be the future of medicine. This will be how we get in front of all the diseases, and it's going to be a big deal. The problem is, the FDA, Big Pharma, they're going to make it really, really difficult for us the whole time. Yeah, it's super weird, but it's like, it's legit. They're really onto this. And the reason is because Ozempic is a peptide. And when Ozempic came out and everyone figured out, gosh, it works so well, there was hell to pay for that. And now it's commercialized and Big Pharma charges an asinine amount of money for it. And so some compounding pharmacies can make it sometimes, depending on what's going on with the FDA and so on and so forth. I digress. Peptides are amazing. There's a whole lot of them, and they're all targeted for different things. So some of them are found in gastric juices. Some of them are found in other areas of humans or plants, or they're manufactured in a lab. But regardless, they're just long chain amino acids. Some of them are longer than others, and they are essentially coded to do a certain thing. The jury's out on a lot of this. Like when you use something like BPC 157, it's still bizarre. It will always blow my mind how you can inject it into your abdomen and somehow it just knows that you have a bulging disc at L4, L5 like I do. It just knows where to go to repair tissue. And it's amazing. But, over time, we're going to do more research and figure out how that works. The nice thing about peptides is they're not completely innocuous. They're not completely risk-free, but they're pretty close. We have yet to find a way to overdose people or terrible things that happen, terrible outcomes. The only thing we know for sure is that it could potentiate tumor growth if you already had one. So we have to be really proactive and careful on screening, making sure that you're checking your prostate levels, doing your colonoscopies, your mammograms, and all the things. As long as you're doing that, there's a peptide for everything. Like I said, I'm going to try cerebrolysin to try to see what happens with my eyesight. You can use, we could get into them, but there's several that are targeted for orthopedic recovery, tissue regeneration, and things of that sort. There's one that increases delta waves in your brain that will help you sleep. There's one that increases melanin that will give you a tan, called the Barbie peptide. There's so many peptides, and there's so much fun to play with, learn about. So I'll be the first guinea pig on all the weird ones. Maybe
Okay.
starting with the Barbie one. We'll see.
Yeah, right. We'll have to start taking notes and we'll do like a whole nother show just on
Yeah.
peptides before and after or something like that. That's
I'm
so
going to show up
interesting.
really tan.
Right? Right? With super white teeth and
Yes.
blonde hair, maybe. Can it change your hair color?
I don't
That's too
know. We'll
funny.
see.
That's
We'll
too
see.
funny. So, I mean, are they relatively, is this kind of a newer tech? I don't know if technology is the right word for it, but are these new-ish findings in the medical world?
No.
No?
Yes.
Been around? Okay.
Both. Yes. Peptides are not new. They exist. They just exist, They're difficult to patent because, for instance, if this fig tree behind me has a peptide or a chain of amino acids in it and someone extracts it, finds out that it causes your hair to turn blonde, well, the fig tree made it. Like the fig tree owns the rights to that,
Okay.
and so it's
Yeah.
really difficult to then go reproduce it and say that it's yours. And so
Makes sense.
peptides are a sticky area of medicine, but but a lot of them just exist. They exist in our bodies. They exist in animals' bodies. They exist in plants. They just exist in nature. And so they're not new in existence. But what's new is all the research being done on them and finding out that, oh, this one can do that. Oh, this one can also do these things. And so, but there are peptides that have been around for a really long time, like 20 years or more.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that new.
Just seems like, okay. Yeah. Maybe it's just new to me because this is all sort of new to me.
It's
but
new. Like I'm medically trained. No one said a word. I don't even know that I ever heard that word in grad school, So yeah, it's new to the world in that sense. We haven't talked about it, but they're not new in existence at all. We didn't just create them.
Okay. Got it. What about, this is kind of a fun subject. If you were to teach a class, what would that look like?
How to cheat the system.
Oh, elaborate, please.
Well, when you get a bill that's not itemized, you make a phone call and you ask them to itemize it. And then you find out that you were charged for 2 circumcisions. Just start. But, little things like, if you find out that if you need a whole bunch of labs drawn and your insurance only covers 50%, there are actually like several and more coming up. I use one in particular called altalabtests.com, but you can go order your own freaking labs, order your own labs, decide where you want to go. The results come to you because it's your body and we are smart enough to know maybe sometimes you just want to check your A1C. You just want to know where it's at. Check it. It's $21. You don't have to bill insurance. You do it. So if you want a chest x-ray, turns out you can walk into Touchstone or Health Images and say, you have to have an order, but like someone like me, you can Venmo me some money, whatever. Hopefully the feds aren't watching this, but I'll write you a prescription and you go get your x-ray, but you don't have to go to urgent care. You don't have to go to the ER. You don't have to go to your primary care, wait 3 weeks. And by then you're either dead or your fracture's healed anyway. You can actually get quicker care and bypass some of the red tape that the system has created. So in my spare time, if I had any, I would love to create a class teaching people how to bypass all of this stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Well, and that's why I think moving forward, I think folks need to have somebody like you in their life, right? Just to be able to help and be a resource and bounce things off of. And, you're like on my speed dial and I'm like, hey, what about this? What about this? Kind of a thing. I try not to blow you up or anything or annoy you, but I'm just like, but it's that hopefully the way things start to move forward. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, is just to share, because it's like whatever I was doing before didn't work. And all of a sudden, here you are with me. And it's like everything's improving very, very easily and quickly and makes sense to me, which is great. What about, do you have any resources that you like to share with folks, books or podcasts or anything along those lines?
It depends on what your interest is. My caution, I don't have like one person that I follow that I think is just really amazing about anything. I'm a little bit of a biohacking junkie, so you can put me in front of Breck or anyone in that field and I can nerd out all day long. I love listening to podcasts and listening to new research. But the biggest caution, it's more about what not to read, is like anybody, especially with social media, anybody can get on anywhere and say anything. And so knowing that whatever's being said to you is backed by actual knowledge, by data, by research, to me, like there are so many public medical journals that you can read and actually everyone is smart. They're written at a 5th grade level. Everyone's smart enough to read this stuff and figure out what the truth actually is. People just don't try that hard. They just scroll social media and listen to whatever anyone says. So I'm very careful with the input that I accept from who I accept it. And I hope that everybody else is too. My oath to do no harm includes everything that I put out there, whether it's on this podcast or here in my chair, is going to be true. I'm going to make sure that whatever I'm saying is true and that it's backed by real science and data and research and not just my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Or backing from some big pocketbook or something, right? I think that's the big scary thing.
Yeah.
What is something that people might be a little surprised to know about you?
Prior to like a few months ago, I used to be able to tumble like a gymnast still, and I'll be 43.
Oh, well. Yeah, neat. Yeah.
In the less cool but real sense. I wish there was a way to tell the truth about this stuff to everyone and know that they can trust me. And it's not because I'm trying to boost me or build me, but I so desperately want everyone to know the truth. And I so desperately want everybody to be well and to not be on 100 meds. I used to get in trouble all the time. I would like take people off meds. In the ER, I'd look at their long list and be like, I don't know if we really need this and this and this. Let's try to not. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Yeah. But I really, truly, really, really do want people to be well. And it's not to benefit myself financially. I'm barely charging. I'm not charging what I should, That's really out of altruistic reasons. So that's what that's a boring answer, but it's the truth.
No, but it's the truth, right? And I'll kind of agree. This might be a good transition into, I want to talk to you a little bit about health and nutrition. And I'll share a little bit. So, when I first started really paying attention to what I was eating, like I dropped the first 30, 40 pounds like that. The rest of it just kind of slowly came off. And, I got to the point where I'm like, I feel like a total weird hippie that went to, anyway, I guess it doesn't matter where I would have gone. But I didn't care. I was like, oh gosh, this is just a hippie Whole Foods kind of a conversation, or this guy's kind of dumb or whatever. But full on organic, no GMOs, all of this stuff, right? Grass fed, finished. I buy almost everything I eat from a farm or a farmer or something like that. And my wife's very vocal. She's been on here as well. She's suffered from depression for a long time. So kind of funny story. She doesn't cook at all. If she was sitting right here, she'd laugh. She burns water, right? She screws up toast. It's kind of a funny thing in our household. So anyway, my point is I do all the food prep and all the cooking and all the stuff, right? So when I started going down this journey, guess what? So did she. And what's super interesting is that it really started to improve. We've just found out recently she's been misdiagnosed with PMDD for at least a decade, but severe depression, anxiety, all of these things. And it's been a substantial, more than any crazy combination of medicine that she's ever taken has done to improve her mental health. So not only from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint. Will you share your, a couple thoughts on just nutrition and how that can affect people?
The thing that came to mind when you were talking about your wife first is how disappointed I am back to, and it's hard to blame the system. It really is, because everyone's just doing what they're paid to do and they're drinking the juice. And, no one person is really at fault other than the system as a whole, government, whatever. But in school, I don't remember a class. Maybe I had one. I could be wrong. If any of my colleagues listen to this and they can correct me, but I don't remember one class about food. I don't remember sitting through anything learning. I remember learning about the Mediterranean diet or a low salt diet for cardiovascular, whatever, things like that, but never that food is medicine. And why is it that we don't start there? Why is it that even in medical school, why do we not start with the low-hanging fruit? That is the low-hanging fruit. You go to the grocery store multiple times a week, probably. You have choices that you can make. And if you knew better, maybe you would never advance to these levels of disease if we got ahead of it. That's part of functional biohacking medicine type stuff. It's food. It is food. It's so sad to me. And the fact, it's just a great testimony that your wife feels better just from eating healthier alone. She didn't have to do a million things that cost $1 million or be on a whole bunch of drugs to feel better. It's just freaking food. Why did we not teach it? We don't teach it. It is medicine. My kids know food is medicine. They eat things they don't want to eat.
Well, so I bought, I think it was a half a cow from this outfit kind of east of town a little bit in the spring. It was almost a year ago. And, it's all organic, grass-fed, finished, the whole nine. And we got into this deep conversation, kind of like you and I are, but for about 45 minutes on the subject. And at the end of my big takeaway from that is food is either poison or medicine, right?
Yeah.
Just pick or choose, like which one you want, kind of a thing. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on exercising and weights? And I'm going to preface, I saw something on one of your reels on Instagram, which I absolutely freaking love. And it said we're training for a feeling, not a look. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I sit here mostly with women all day long and have for a really long time, and in the ER too. There are lots of people that don't have a perfect physique who are completely fulfilled, very happy, very confident, successful, have great relationships, right? It's like the physique itself is nice, and it hardly matters. What matters, especially to me in healthcare, is what's on the inside, which is why I'm pretty diligent at ordering labs, repeating labs, making sure I'm asking questions, because if you look similar, you can tell that you lost some weight or something, but in general, you look similar. But I know that your bone density is better, your muscle mass is higher, your cholesterol is down, your thyroid's functioning better. You no longer have an elevated whatever it is that's causing problems with your kidneys. You know what I'm saying? Then I'm so happy. I don't necessarily really care that the shape isn't exactly as you wanted. I think that whole thing, that whole like super skinny girl on the front of a magazine problem that I grew up with, hopefully those days are gone.
Yeah.
But I care so much about what's on that's what's going to help you live longer.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. I just thought that was a super cool statement when I saw it, on your reel there. What about like exercise and weights? What do you think? What are your thoughts on women and weights?
So
Or men too, like both. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry
the
to cut you off.
numbers. Well, okay. So I could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
Weightlifting in women, especially after menopause. So once estrogen starts to tank, it decreases all-cause mortality by almost 20%. It's like 19.1% all-cause mortality. So death by any reason, 20%. And we're talking about, I believe the last one I saw was 57 minutes a week. It's not even 57 minutes a day. It's not 57 minutes 3 times a week. It's 57 minutes a week.
Wait, in total?
In total.
57 minutes totally a week?
A week of
Wow.
weightlifting in women decreases all-cause mortality by 19 point something percent. It decreases cardiovascular mortality by 30%, and cardiovascular disease is still the leading cause of death in women. Post-menopause, when estrogen starts to just, down the drain, you lose 20% of bone density in the first 5 years. This is agnostic from hormone replacement, which is why I do hormone replacement, bioidentical hormone replacement. But it is, we call them skinny fat. So people that are addicted to cardio but don't ever lift weights, they're the skinny fat.
Okay.
That's what they are. So that's actually, it causes slower recovery. It causes joint ligament issues. It can cause bone demineralization if you're doing too much of it. Weightlifting is the opposite of all of that. So I'm not saying cardio is bad. I'm saying that, when I was in college, I would run for like an hour and a half on a treadmill and leave, walk past every weight, never lift one of them. And I was like 20, I was in great shape, but I did not have much muscle mass. Those days that ship sailed a while ago. I'm almost 43. I do some cardio and some of it's intense. A lot of it's not intense, but I lift heavy. And that's really, really important, especially as a woman. Same for men.
Well, yeah, is there a fear? I don't mean to try and project this a little bit, but I know just from my wife's experience, like she's like, gosh, I don't want to lift any weights. I'm just going to get bulky. Like, I've heard that come out of her mouth for a long time ago, but is that you lift a lot of weights. You don't look like you've got your neck and everything, like, you know what I mean? You're like a wrestler kind of type looking lady, right? You know what I mean? Is that a fear?
I've never been a bodybuilder. I know some, but I cannot comment on the extreme dedication and work it takes to look like that. The idea of any woman just lifting heavy 3 times a week, becoming like Hulk, is ridiculous. I don't know where that Hulkian fear came from, but it's completely ridiculous.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. I work out with a trainer often, and he's a professional bodybuilder, and the shit he goes through, I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, it's No thanks,
No, thank
bro.
you. No,
Right?
thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. What about going back to the nutrition piece? Like, how do you help guide folks into some good decisions there?
When you said if you could teach a class, what would it be?
Yeah.
That would be part of it too, because if you look at the food pyramid, remember like the 9 to 11 grains or something that was on the food pyramid would kill everyone if everyone followed it. It's completely backwards. It's so ridiculous.
Right.
Really, if we're talking on a 5th grade level, I kind of like to keep things really simple. I can
Yeah.
really overwhelm the system. If somebody comes in and they're sort of new to all of this, I always start with protein. Making sure they're getting enough protein, focusing on protein.
Is there a general, I love this, by the way, and I don't mean to cut you off, but is there a general, is it different for men and women? Is it a body weight thing? Is it kind of depend on what you're trying to do? But like, give a general protein, like, because I think a lot of people don't have enough, right? Just based on what I've learned in the
They
last year.
totally don't. A gram per pound of body weight, something like that. But I mean, if you wanted to just start somewhere, but it depends on what you're trying to do. It depends if you're a man or a woman. It depends what your weight is. It depends on a lot of different factors. So, but in general, nobody, unless they're intentionally, it's really amazing. If someone starts to track, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was eating like no protein.
5 a day, like 5, 10 grams a day, like hardly anything, right?
Yeah. Women are the worst because they'll grab like a kale salad with some shredded carrots, and then they want to know why they're not putting muscle on. So protein. And then the other thing that is an issue a lot of times with women, especially when we get into, women are more complicated. That is for darn sure.
Okay.
A lot of them are in a caloric deficit, and
Oh, interesting.
it's actually harmful, and it's making it more difficult for them to lose weight because they're constantly in this state of starvation. And so, some of them do overeat. Some of them sometimes it's really straightforward. Quit drinking Coke and quit eating Oreos and everything gets better. But a lot of times it's someone who's eating really, really well, not getting enough protein, undernourished. So I have a test that I like, Genova makes it. It's called the NutriVal test. And it does, you stay off of all your supplements or anything for 10 days. And then you do a blood test and it will tell you exactly what you lack. For example, like I used to take a multivitamin and all these different vitamin D, all the things. And I did my test and it turns out glutathione, I don't make enough glutathione. And then B6 was the vitamin that I was low in. And so those are the 2 things that I take. And that's it now. I don't take anything else unless I just need it for some reason. But starting with a test like that to see at baseline, when you eat the way you normally do, what is it that your body absorbs well? What is it that you need help with? I love starting there and then starting with making sure they're getting enough calories and making sure they're getting enough protein. That's like baseline.
Yeah, 101.
We can
Gosh,
get
I
into
love
the
that.
weeds. Yeah, we can get into the weeds of nutrition all day long, but that's the baseline.
I think that, like, speaking from experience, right? Like, I've gone through a lot of what you're talking about and really have made some massive adjustments. And I've got a couple other things I want to talk about around those. But I can tell you from just personal experience, it like the way I feel like I'm more outgoing, I'm more outrageous, right? Like in a good way. My energy's through the freaking roof. I sleep. Kind of funny. Adam Way and I actually tracked this a bunch and we'll send it to each other, like when we had a record night or something like that. I can tell when I drink that my sleep plummets, right? The amount of deep sleep that I get, my heart rate goes up 30 beats a minute when I drink at night, when I sleep. So like these are all kind of fun, just my point to all of this is just really paying attention to the nutrition. I track my macros. I'm kind of a nerd with some of that stuff, but like my energy's through the roof, right? My mindset, my clarity, like it's a lot of fun. So my next question was going to be, if somebody's kind of like, it took me forever to get there though, right? And I kicked myself because I've lost a lot of really great years or whatever, but it is what it is. It's better than waiting until next year. My question is like, what have you seen help people get motivated to kind of get on the right track for folks that have struggled? Because that's been me a long time.
Yeah, sadly, the answer to that is it takes a scare. It takes someone close to them dying, getting really sick to wake them up. It's really, really, to go out there and just find a happy person who's not really being careful about anything, but generally healthy, who's 35, like this is not on their radar. Yeah. I mean, it's on my radar. Thankfully, I saw so much death and dying and disease and trauma in the ER for so long. I'm plenty motivated. I know what I don't want. But
Sure.
my story is different than the grand majority of people. And so it takes a scare. It takes a problem to wake
Yeah.
them up, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate that it has to get to that level. I hope maybe somebody seeing this, reading this, something is just interested in like trying to, the whole point of this podcast and I'm building is just trying to level up somehow, some way, right? We've had business leaders and all kinds of different takes. We've had mental health, we've had therapists, I've got some military and all kinds of cool stuff coming up. And the whole point is just to help people improve. Like my premise is, if this can touch one person and help them improve in some way, level up, if you will, that's where it's at. So, I'm sure you can agree with me here. Like if you're not doing things proactively to take care of yourself, let's hopefully be watching this and take the next step just to get a little bit better, right? Because that starts to get the wheels in motion and the motivation going.
Oh, exactly. Once you start to see things change, you feel better, you sleep better. All of a sudden, you're less interested in the crap food, or you're less interested in being lazy. You're more interested in moving your body, more interested in making a good choice. That is success is motivating. But that first step towards that first little piece of success usually takes trauma, loss, pain, sickness.
Which is sad.
It is really sad. The other thing that I have found, this is like a interesting little piece. People that wear watches, I have an Aura ring, any kind of anything that will collect data.
I have an Apple Watch,
Yeah, even in people that are generally unmotivated, when they start to learn what some of these metrics mean, it starts to worry them a little bit. And they're like, maybe there's something I could do about my high resting metabolic rate, or my HRV, or my whatever it is. Or I'm sleeping like absolute trash. Why am I sleeping like trash? And that's just a gateway we could test all the things, So I love little devices that track a lot.
Love it. Yeah, I do too. It is super motivating. Like when it yells at me, I'm like, oh God, shut up. Yeah. I know. I'll close the damn rings, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, so first of all, just thank you for taking the time. I know you're super busy, and I'm just very, very honored that you took time to share with us today. I wrote a whole bunch of things down just that I am implementing or wanting to do better with. A couple of my top takeaways was the caloric deficit. I think a lot, especially for women, my wife totally struggles with that. So I'm going to share that with her. It's just be like, and I try and kind of like, I think you need to eat a little more. And she's like, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you don't care about our marital deals there. But and then the other thing that was really big for me is when you said changing the paradigm, right? Like, I think that for me, it's just a total eye-opening, it's a totally different view now than when I had a year ago or two, or whatever the case is. And I can tell you for sure that it's been earth-shattering to kind of go through some of this and learn. So I love the paradigm piece in there. How do folks connect with you? Can you share your Instagram, or if they want to chat with you about getting into your office and meeting with you, what's that look like? And can you do it remote if somebody in Florida perhaps sees this? Can they meet with you?
Yes. Yep. I can do virtual visits anywhere. So I can give you that information and you can put it out there, or I can say it now if that's helpful. But
do both. Yeah. I'll add it to everything here, but what's the easiest way for folks to connect with you?
To text me. I know, we're in the new age.
Yeah. Right.
Text me. Yeah. The number is 720-593-8844. I don't answer the phone. If you call me, I'm not answering.
Right. So, that's funny.
It's not happening.
And what about, what's your Instagram handle? Can folks go find you there? Follow you?
So there's two. One is at Tanna Lee Donalson. It's TANNALEEDONALSON, or at Redbud Med Spa. Redbud is the Oklahoma State tree. That's my alma mater. That's where that came from. But at Redbud Med Spa, those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Tanna, I'm honored. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time.
Okay, until next time. I'm honored too. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Badass Mavericks. Remember that you have the potential and the superpower to achieve everything in life. All you must do is step out of your comfort zone, tap into your courageous self, and chase your dreams with a strong, positive mindset. For more inspiring conversations like this one, check out more episodes of the show at www.mavericklendingsolutions.com. Do not stop this momentum of building the fulfilling life you truly deserve. That's all for now. See you on the next one.